Nigerian exporters who do not repatriate their proceeds back into the local market now risk being slapped with sanctions by the central bank. This is as the bank strives to strengthen the naira against global currencies. It is time for Global Business. Hello and welcome to the show. I am Penny Nakariba, live in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. We've got plenty coming up this half hour, including these stories. South Africa's electricity generator Eskom is under fire again over plans to sell its finance company. And horse breeders gather in Egypt as the country seeks to revive its ailing tourism sector. Nigerian policymakers are looking at slapping sanctions on exporters who do not repatriate proceeds and funnel them back into the local market. The country's central bank governor, Godwin Emefiele, blamed the pressure on the naira over the past year on the activity of importers and exporters, the former front-loading purchases of hard currency, while the latter were holding their overseas cash earnings. In an interview with Reuters, the governor said those who do not comply with the 90-day limit on proceeds will be banned from accessing foreign exchange in Nigeria. The naira has lost more than 20% against the dollar since the middle of last year, breaking through the important 200 per dollar level last month as it racked up the biggest monthly loss in more than 5 years. In the meantime, the Nigerian parliament will cut the wages of lawmakers in this year's budget by 25%. The country's members of parliament are among the highest paid in the world, and they've resisted pay cuts in the past. But now, falling oil prices have forced them to cut their own budget. CCTV's Deji Badmas has more.
Most Nigerians don't really like their lawmakers, accusing them of earning too much money and doing too little. A 2013 report by The Economist magazine ranked Nigerian lawmakers as the second highest paid in the world as a ratio of GDP per person. The report estimates a Nigerian lawmaker earns about $189,000, which was 116 times the country's GDP back then. The lawmakers had long resisted calls to accept a pay cut, but with government revenues seriously depleted owing to the fall in global oil prices, they have now slashed their own budget by 25%. The gesture is receiving public commendation, even from one of their own.
It is long overdue. I can remember when we were in the Senate. I was the leader of AD in the National Assembly. I was being paid 2.8 billion a month, out of which I paid my 13 aides officially assigned to me, and I took care of my senatorial district and so on. But when I heard about what is being paid now, I felt a little uncomfortable. I know that my fellow senators who are now serving mean quite well to Nigeria, and the challenges before them are great. I appreciate that. But nevertheless, they have taken a wise decision to have reduced their monthly pay.
It's a welcome idea because it now shows that they are feeling the way the masses of this country is feeling. Mass unemployment, things are not moving, and then with this drop in the cost of oil price globally, it now means if they have done that, it's a sacrifice. I commend them. Because if they have not done anything, there is nothing we can do. We'll just be making noise outside. So it now shows they are now having the listening ears of the public.
But besides the commendations, others think the lawmakers could have done more. This aspiring lawmaker says if he won next month's election, he would be pushing for further cuts.
At least I will suggest 15%. God willing, if I'm going to be there, come in April 11, I think I'm going to sponsor a big in respect of that.
And he is not alone.
We have cut it for 50%. That's what I think, which would have been better because the offer is so much. Compared to having so many aides, and of course, they are not relating back to their constituency. They just collect this money and people are big. That's why the contest for the National Assembly is so much, because people now look at what they get from it and not what they give to the country.
The lawmakers' budget is 150 billion naira. 25% of that is less than 40 billion. Now, how much impact that would make in a country that is badly in need of development is very much in doubt. It's also doubtful the lawmakers would have carried out the cut if oil prices had not fallen so low. So everyone is waiting to see what happens when oil prices eventually bounce back. Deji Badmos, CCTV, Lagos, Nigeria.
So let's get more analysis now from Mariam Bimad. She's live for us in London. Mariam, how are investors reacting to the news?
Well, Penina, some experts and investors say they're not surprised, actually, especially since back in February, the central bank introduced new strict trading rules where banks would be able to purchase foreign exchange only if they had a prior order form for a corporate customer. This was all designed to reduce the Naira from plummeting any more than it already has, now almost 25% against the US dollar since the middle of 2014, breaking through that important 200 per dollar level last month. So after racking up the biggest monthly loss in more than 5 years, it was clear the central bank would have to take bolder measures.
And Mariam, how will these sanctions help companies comply with regulations and using the currency market? Could it actually deter investors?
Absolutely. This could pose more problems for the economy, already forecast to drop in real GDP growth from 6.3% last year to 5% next year. An economy that or 5% this year, that is, an economy that heavily depends on exports and now trying to move away from oil, about 70% of government revenues. And of course, as the previous reporter was saying, to see whether or not we'll see oil come back to those normal levels that we remember. We may not see that. And policymakers are looking at exporters to ensure that hard currency liquidity within Nigeria. Sanctions could spell trouble for new prospects, despite the regulation being for exporters who fail to repatriate proceeds and funnel them back into the market within 90 days. Analysts are telling me that it'll likely scare off many new foreign investors looking to support new projects. And despite the region's largest economy being hit hard by the drop in oil prices, this political uncertainty that we're seeing over closely fought, delayed election, all of this is really concerned that this latest aggressive move is yet another hurdle that'll work against the already struggling economy.
So, Mariam, is there a better way the Nigerian government can work around having investors repatriate their proceeds and spend them locally?
Well, that's difficult to say. I mean, the government doesn't want money to be taken out of the country with hopes that this move will help beef up reserves. But experts argue that there's a delicate balance between creating incentives for investors to dump their money into Nigeria and keep it there long term. And the government has complained that about $3 to $4 billion of proceeds due to be repatriated were actually outstanding, of which 40% would come from oil companies. But, many are warning that this is not the time to change the rules of the game. Foreign investors have already sold off Nigerian stocks valued at about $4.5 billion since September last year, after the drop in oil prices actually started and the Naira was falling. This move could push the central bank to actually further intervene, or have to further intervene, because of Nigeria's steep drop in foreign cash reserves.
All right, Mariam Bimad, live for us in London. Mariam, many thanks for joining us. Now, South Africa's electricity generator Eskom is under fire again, and this time it's not about trolling blackouts, but rather about remarks made by its chief executive. Tediso Matona is reported to have told a Reuters Africa Investment Summit that the state-owned entity was considering selling the Eskom finance company, which provides home loan facilities to its employees. One of the biggest unions in the country has already begun a process to stop the sale of the finance company and any other assets. Angela Kupla reports.
The remarks didn't go down well with organised labour. Some even went as far as to demand the resignation of CEO Tediso Matona. Others questioned the rationale of the proposed sale.
We object any attempt of selling a piece of Eskom. That state entity's balance sheet must be strengthened. That's why we don't even support the ISMO bill, which would result to the system being taken away from Eskom. Why would we support now the finance company to be sold? And by the way, what difference it will make? Because it's about a loan book, basically. It will affect negatively these workers, because it means you are changing the condition of service.
The relationship between NUM and Eskom is not a healthy one. The union says that management has not been practicing good labour relations.
You would recall that we have no right to strike in Eskom, and engagement with Eskom are not smooth. You would notice also recently there's a war room established which involves a government. There's no labor, and yet there's business through Busa in that war room. We have workers who understand the business better than anybody else in government.
While the focus has been on the CEO and what he said, the government minister with oversight of Eskom remains anxious about the Medupi power station and the future role of the state-owned entity.
We need a much more in-depth discussion about what is happening with, what happened with Medupi. Because we still have 5 more units that must come online, and then Kusile, and then Ngula. So we have all of those units that must come online. Are we ready for maintenance? Are we ready to be a project or company that can maintain the plants, build and maintain the plants?
Eskom and its management team are floundering at the moment, moving from one extremely huge crisis to another, not sure what they're doing. They have a war room that doesn't have all its personnel in it, and it seems that the Public Enterprises Minister Lynn Brown thinks that this week is going to be a make or break week. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV in downtown Johannesburg.
Let's turn our attention to the markets now, and all 4 major indices that we track ended in the red, with the Nigerian oil share shedding around about 1.5%. Coming up, details on easily accessing low-interest loans via your mobile phone in Kenya. And African retailers seeking greater business ground across the continent converge in South Africa.
Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. We help you make sense of the fast-changing African business landscape. We take you where the business is happening.
Global Business, weekdays at this time on CCTV Africa.
Effects of the austerity measures are evident and were expected. Egyptians, however, seem to be patient about it. But El-Sisi told government he wants to control the prices promptly before people's patience runs out.
You're watching Global Business. Welcome back. Kenya Commercial Bank Group and telecom operator Safaricom have launched a new mobile banking product. KCB M-Pesa account enables customers to get loans using their mobile phones. The loans are offered with a flexible repayment period ranging from a month to 6 months. The facility fee for the loan starts at 2% per month, and customers have the option of 2 fixed savings options, a fixed deposit account and a target savings account. Safaricom and KCB Group entered into this strategic partnership in June last year and launched their first joint proposition, Biashara Smart, which offers a suite of technology and financial solutions geared at enabling SMEs grow.
Traditional credit has been very limited, and if you feel the way the country has been growing, today the country is growing at 5.3%. If I remind you, a few years ago the country was growing at 7.1%. That is what this kind of innovation today is creating, perhaps the first in the continent. So we enable millions of our younger people, bringing back our 4 million customers in KCB, and looking at the 15 million customers in Safaricom. So naturally, we're going to connect 20 million people today in one instance and giving them credit.
Today's customers are demanding kind of three things. They're demanding immediacy, they're demanding convenience, and they're demanding flexibility. The majority of people in employment, they're actually working in the informal sector, which means they have an irregular income and oftentimes an unpredictable income. But that doesn't mean they should be excluded from being offered financial services.
Over to Togo now, where the banking industry is getting competitive following government plans to further expand this sector. Coris Bank International is the latest group to launch operations in the country, which is currently serviced by 11 other financial institutions.
Togo is now the fourth country after Burkina Faso, Cote d'Ivoire and Mali to host the subsidiary of Coris Group. Coris Bank Togo seeks to be a leading financial service provider for SMEs, large companies and individuals. The bank's foray into the country has been inspired by the government's reforms to improve the business climate.
The establishment of a climate of peace and the consolidation of the business climate has helped to generate increased confidence in the partners, and this is important for the revival of economic activity.
The bank began operations in 2008 in Burkina Faso and has a network of 30 branches. Currently, it controls 80% of the market share, and it is targeting to translate the same gains in Togo.
Our goal is to contribute to raising the banking rate in Togo. Before SMEs can participate and play a full role in the development of the country, they should have access to finance and credit.
As a measure to attract more customers, the bank has waived account maintenance fees for the entire year of 2015. Togo is currently served by 11 banks. Nolmokugu, CCTV.
African retailers have converged in Johannesburg, South Africa for a two-day conference and exhibition. At the meeting, the retailers aim to exchange experiences and information on the latest trends and strategies to improve their businesses. The entrepreneurs will also discuss innovative technology solutions for Africa's fast-growing retail sector. CCTV's Julie Share has more on what's hot tonight.
African retailers are hungry for innovative solutions, and they're finding new ways to expand their businesses within Africa. And this place might just be the right option. In today's world, technology in retail has become the backbone for any business and the ultimate tool to grow sustainable sales and effectively compete with other sophisticated retailers. And thanks to exhibitions like these, providers are able to meet new customers and grow their businesses in Africa.
This is a forum for your major technology vendors from across the world, also the local representative in Southern Africa and in Africa, as well as the markets, the banking and retail sector from across the continent to come together.
It's very important, and while we're here, we're looking at ways and means of improving our current payment system, because we're currently using a service provider, and as government we're looking at reducing costs but while promoting efficiency and effectiveness.
Mobile technology in Africa is changing many lives, and easy payment solutions are providing a lucrative opportunity for providers on the continent.
Now we've seen the integration in the African market, mobile taking off really well in the payment space. That obviously having quite repercussions for retailers, and should I rather say opportunities in the African market. I can highlight obviously mobile payments is really a big focus of this conference and exhibition.
One of the innovative solutions now available in Africa is Tap It and Buy, a mobile payment platform aimed at simplifying mobile transactions.
I think Africa is more than ready, and if you look at the payment industry in Africa, this is the place where innovation happens. So the first step is to go contactless with a card. Instead of inserting your card at POS, you just tap and go. I think Africa is more than ready to embrace this technology.
But as much as times are exciting for retail in Africa, there are still challenges.
One of the biggest challenges towards entering the African market is the network connectivity that they already have installed in their nations. The connectivity, 2G, 3G, and now evolving to 4G, has made great barriers towards mobility devices to work very properly.
Due to security issues around the world, technology has had to move fast, and this device hopes to bring that security.
I think with the increasing threat on terrorism in the global market, what we have done is that we have actually designed a device, which is an intelligent device where we have incorporated some computing capabilities that we can actually scan the passports. With that information, we are able to secure the borders even more effectively.
Following the latest trends in technology and security is giving African retailers and providers a chance to connect with international manufacturers and create a promising future for retail and commerce in Africa. Julie Shire, CCTV, Johannesburg.
Producing electricity can be as simple as child's play at a school on Ghana's Volta River as children's efforts in the playground are turned into energy. The play equipment has turbines that powers a battery in the classroom. The battery recharges lamps that the children take home, giving them light to do their homework. Mahemutua with the story.
Despite being cut off from the national grid, Pediatokope is relatively well off compared to the capital Accra and the rest of the country when it comes to power. This is because it uses the natural energy of children to generate enough electricity to power lanterns every time they use specially adapted roundabouts.
As you have seen the children turning round on the merry-go-round, there is a battery inside the room which charges the system over there, so that when the children after school, they send the lighting back home, and then after the lighting is going off, they come for recharge. So it is helping the students to learn.
George Thompson, a project manager for the charity Empower Playgrounds, travels to the most remote parts of the country to equip schools with these adapted playground rides. 42 schools across the country are already taking part in the scheme.
Our objective is not to make any money from or profit from this, but we need to get the center sustainable, or the project sustainable. So we asked them to pay 500 Ghana cedis to be hooked up to the system, and then each time they bring the battery for recharge, they pay 5 cedis for that.
Ghana is currently facing an energy crisis which is slowing down economic activity and raising fears about its effect on the emerging economy's overall development. Most homes receive electricity for 12 hours but can then be without power for the next 24. Some businesses have threatened to leave the country for places with more regular supply. Others said they are being forced to downsize their workforce.
Apart from the industry, there is no social life. There is no nightlife in Ghana because we go under the period of 12 hours light and then 24 hours without lights. So you can see the effect on the very small manufacturers, small retailers.
A separate scheme using solar power is also running on the island, where residents pay 500 cedis or just about $150 to buy a battery, which is recharged by the sun via roof panels at a charging station. Mahia Mutua, CCTV.
A quick look at commodities. And gold fell 1.1% to its lowest in more than 3 months on Wednesday and looked set for an 8th straight losing session as a robust dollar and expectations of higher US rates curbed appetite for the metal. The metal was also under pressure from firmer European shares, which bounced back from the previous session's sell-off as a weaker euro lifted stocks in the region's exporters. Still ahead, horse breeders gather in Egypt as the country seeks to revive its tourism sector. In addition to hosting 2 international investment conferences, Egypt recently hosted the International Equestrian Festival in a bid to boost tourism. The country hopes to increase revenues from the tourism sector by at least 20% by the end of this year. That festival is our focus on Grassroots tonight.
In an effort to boost tourism by at least 20%, the Egyptian government hosted the International Equestrian Festival in Cairo. Over 200 national and international participants from as far afield as France showcased different breeds of horses in the competition. And the standards of this beauty contest is high. Judges were on the lookout for a broad forehead, large eyes, large nostrils, and small muzzles.
There are 5 measures to point out the winner horse: the type of horse and its Arab origins, then the standards of beauty, stability, stamina, and its movements. All these measures determine its type.
The 3-day event saw Egyptian horse breeders dominate. Egypt has a long-standing international reputation for professional horse riding.
It took me a long time to prepare my horse to contest in this competition. It took me a long time to have my horse's looks very beautiful and also physically fit enough to perform the show. Yes, it took a long time to have it ready. Not less than 2 or 3 months in preparation.
The quality of the horses is much more higher there. But I would like to say that the breeders are doing their best in the quality to participate. This is very good, and I think they will have a very great future.
Tourism is a major source of revenue for Egypt, and the government hopes that events like the annual International Equestrian Festival will boost the ailing sector to what it was before the uprising. Valdi Karolsa, CCTV.
Let's look at the currencies now. And South Africa's rand recouped some of its steep losses against the dollar on Wednesday, gaining 1%, but still hovered around the 13-year low hit after a sell-off of emerging market currencies. The currency also gained more than 1.7% against the euro. But just before we go, coming up on Global Business tomorrow, local and international investors converge in Sharm el-Sheikh Resort City in Egypt for a major investment conference. They bring you highlights of investment opportunities and the government's turnaround strategy. Plus, Kenya launches a national action plan for implementing the UN Sustainable Energy for All initiative. This will make Kenya the second country after the Gambia to adopt an action agenda outlining the actions the country will take to achieve set goals in renewable energy resources. We shall be analyzing this ambitious plan. Well, let's leave it there for now on Global Business. To send your feedback to Global Business Africa at cctv.com. You can visit us on Facebook. Our page is CCTV Africa. You can stay in touch with us on Twitter using the handle at CCTV News Africa. I am Penina Karibe. Thanks for your company.